Good day to everyone. Welcome to Dhamma Talks on World Buddhist TV, organized by Buddhist Sangha Youth of Thailand. So it's a great honor to have Venerable and Novice Jim. I believe all of you, the viewing audience, you're familiar with him. The author's time maybe last 1 or 2 months ago. We have a good time with him sharing the Dhamma, especially spirituality, about Buddhism, his experience, his spiritual journey, or even his sense of humor, on Buddhism, and that's why his excellent works about Buddhist humor right now. Maybe some of you would like to learn and to know more about him. So, Novice Jim, welcome back to the TV show.
Sawadee.
Yeah.
Good to be here.
Yeah. Are you okay?
It's very exciting.
Mm-hmm.
The experience of being a novice is quite different than what I had expected.
Oh, really?
Yes, in pleasant ways.
Mm-hmm.
I think when we had our earlier talks, I said that it might not be a good idea for me to do this because it might be so attractive and appealing I may not reconsider.
Yeah.
Which is a different way of perceiving the choice.
Yeah.
In fact, even in my earlier Buddhist experiences in the last 40 years, I've been asked to either be a lama or a teacher.
Oh, okay.
And I declined that because I wished to do my own meditations, and I didn't want to be distracted by those kinds of responsibilities.
Yeah.
I felt that they were, in fact, too distracting in a formal, traditional sense from my meditational practices.
Excellent. So, is your first time to have experience or to be ordained as a novice?
I was a novice at the Chan Center at Mission District in San Francisco for quite a period of time, where we did what are called hard practices, which you get up at 4.
That's, you mean the Zen tradition?
No, it was Chinese Chan.
Oh,
actually.
Chinese Chan, I see. Oh, Chinese Chan.
And Venerable Master Xuan Hua in San Francisco, who attracted, for the most part, PhDs.
Really?
And it was extremely academic, very austere. In San Francisco Mission District, it's cold all the time.
Yeah, exactly.
And at that time, they had been given a old furniture factory made out of brick, and they painted it kind of a dark gray to liven things up. And so it's cold and gray and dark and smoky, with incense and old Chinese Buddhist statues, and it was very traditional. Very austere. The monks cooked for 6 days a week, and the food was impossible to describe. You had no idea what you were eating. I said in my Buddhist humor book is you just kind of hoped it was food, or that your stomach knew what this was and could do something with it. On Sundays in the Chan Center, the women from Chinatown would cook for the monks.
Oh, right.
And it was the most extraordinary food you imagined in the very traditional old Chinese.
Yeah.
And you ate on Sunday for the entire week if you knew what was good for you.
Okay.
And but that was my early experience with a novice conditions. With the Mahayana, the novice conditions are quite a bit different. They're significantly more secular
Oh, I see.
And I lived with the Tibetan Lamas for about 6 years.
How different between the novice and upashaka as you take a vow? I mean, as a upashaka or lay person, we call a Buddhist, and take the precept. In Thai tradition, we have the upashaka, or one who in the white clothes,
Yes.
and then they take the 8 precepts, and that they get close to the monks, maybe to serve monks in a monastery, or even they practice some kinds of meditation. Is half between, the bridge between the world and the spiritual or the monastic life. That's a kind of Thai upashaka, or one who take the 8 precepts. What about you?
From Mahayana and Hinayana, the precepts are the same.
Oh, really?
They call upasaka chopan
Mm-hmm.
in Tibet, which
Yeah.
means temple servant,
I
which
see.
you need to emphasize servant here. Because mostly you do what the lamas need to be done. Oddly enough, in 1970, early 1970s,
Yeah,
the Tibetan lamas came from Dharmasala, India.
right.
And they had actually journeyed almost 2,000 miles from Kham, Tibet, through Kathmandu and into India
Right,
during the 1960s.
right, at that time.
And one of the lamas, Gyaltsen Rinpoche, was from Bellevue, Canada. The Canadian government actually brought them over, 50 families, and he came to Berkeley from Canada. Dudrupchen Rinpoche came from Sikkim as Lama Jikse.
Yeah,
Now, what was nice is that at that time, the lamas couldn't figure out where the bathrooms were in the West,
in the West.
because the bathroom doors looked like just any other doors.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like a miracle. I would go to a door and open it up, and there was a bathroom. And it was like I manifested it out of a wall.
Yeah,
And they actually included me because I was able to do that.
oh,
And it was completely, it was almost like a miracle to open this door and have them find something they needed. And I made sure they found one every couple of hours.
yeah,
And so making yourself useful is one way of staying around with the lamas. It's one of the meditations. If you want to be there, make yourself indispensable. And finding bathrooms was an indispensable condition in the early 70s until they figured this out. I think I did other things, driving
So
them about.
you have through, got through some, many traditions, several traditions, whether it be Tibetan or Vajrayana tradition, or even Chan, Chinese Chan, or even Zen. I have heard you have experience with Zen. Right now you are, have experience with, Theravada tradition. In your opinion, what kinds of, meditation, or what kinds of experience you think as you want to learn more, or you want to understand more, or something like that?
What the Chopan tradition and the Upasaka tradition, within all of these traditions, are very much the same. Putting the robes on in this regard in Thailand is different in a number of respects.
I see.
For example, I'm now living in a Buddhist country
Right.
that has a long history of Buddhist tradition.
Yeah. About 800 years. Yeah.
Yes, that's with the Thais.
Right.
But it has a Buddhist tradition that's even older than that.
Yep. Yeah.
That was supported by the monks and other people
Yeah.
before
Mon, Lawa. Yeah.
in this area.
In this area, right? Suvarnabhumi area, right?
So living in a more traditional Buddhist country, of course, there are historical expectations, I suspect,
Yeah.
from the monks and as for the lay people. And now that I have robes on, they mostly don't make a distinction between samanims and
Someone
monks,
yeah, and monks.
and so they treat me like a monk.
Yeah, because what? Because of what?
I think this because of the robe.
Yeah.
And so under these conditions, it's very public.
Uh-huh.
Where in the West, I was able to disappear in ordinary layman clothing, and no one actually knew that I was unusual at all. And I preferred the anonymity. If I went around in the United States in a robe, I'm sure it would be very surprising. And
it is.
it actually creates a kind of a responsibility that is now conscious, where before I could behave, let's say, quietly without being distracted by that recognition. And the recognition, as far as I can tell from myself, is a distraction.
I see.
My meditations are such that people ask essentially for blessings or appreciation. And my meditations actually don't include that as a value insofar as I would really actually recognize their suffering in a personal sense. And rather than it's like I'm being asked for a blessing.
Yeah.
My meditation would be, they would be asking for help for their suffering, which is a slightly different appreciation of the meditational practices. And in that responsibility that I now have as a public figure, recognizable public figure,
right.
I find that I feel very concerned about the suffering that these people are having and asking for solutions for.
That's a kind of the maybe bodhisattva in Mahayana sense, but even in Theravada we have this idea through the Buddha we call the compassion, right? Yeah, a kind of this meditation is mean they always practice after the regular practice or regular technique of meditation has been practiced by the practitioner, and after that, as I mentioned, they quite appreciate practicing the compassion meditation, or we call it meditation, loving kindness meditation, something like that. But I'm not sure how much is different between that. Between as you mentioned, you have the beautiful mind to help people, and even you have this sense we call altruism, right? Altruism or altruistic motive or mind is a kind of the one who gonna be the future of the Buddha. That's why in Mahayana, as you familiar with that, about the people, they quite want. Everyone can be the Buddha, descend, or even the. But in Theravada, we don't think like that. But we appreciate this values or this virtues as well, such as the wisdom and compassion, which we believe the three virtues of the Buddha, which the purity, another one. And so meditation, I think, is in Theravada tradition, they quite not familiar with you, as you mentioned. They just only recite the mantra, right? For example, may I be happy, may I be free from suffering, and then they move on to the others or extend to the other sentient beings. For example, may all living beings be happy, and blah blah blah, whatever. This kind of practice is only a short time, but I think it's different from you, as you try to I mean, I mean, apply into your, I mean, daily practice or in your, I mean, meditation application, which is very beautiful. And then when you have more and more this kind of I mean, altruistic motive, and then you will help others in the near future. Especially, I have heard you have many plans to do in the future, not just only compose, I mean, your books or your manuscript. So I think it's for the next show we can talking about your future plan. Okay. So in this time, as you mentioned about the past or your experience about, I mean, Buddhism from various traditions. Right now, you are practicing, I mean, a Theravada tradition in Theravada practice Buddhist country like Thailand. Uh, could you please tell the difference between, I mean, Thai Buddhist and the other Buddhist?
Well, at least I've only been here a couple of years,
Mm-hmm.
and I spent a year in Sri Lanka, which
Oh.
is a little bit different.
Yeah, I see. Even they practice the same Theravada, but
Yes.
different.
Well, you have traditions,
I
and then
see.
you have the teachings of the Buddha.
I see.
And the traditions modify or, let's say, emphasize different aspects of the Buddhist Dharma.
I see.
And that's, I think, very important.
Mm-hmm.
I know I've heard criticism about all the various schools, but my feeling is that the Buddha actually intended the diversity to actually be spread and encouraged,
Yeah.
because different people will hear
Mm-hmm.
the Buddha's message in different ways.
Mm-hmm.
And many times it takes a tradition to manage those perspectives,
Yeah.
such that the beginning person
Mm-hmm.
can better appreciate the differences.
Yeah.
So I rather value the differences in all the different Dharma techniques.
Mm.
As far as Thai Buddhism is concerned, it's, well, I'm going to use the word more basic or more fundamental
Oh, I see.
in its presentation.
Uh-huh.
I don't want it, the word simpler may be a right word, but it doesn't get the right character.
I see.
I think, for example, the Tibetan Mahayana is very complicated. I mean, it starts out complicated and gets really, really incomprehensible.
How is this complicated in your sense?
Well-
a loss of ritual, a loss of interpretation, or even a loss of symbolisms, or something like that.
All of that, and style also.
Style.
There's just a style within the Tibetan tradition that is just complicated. Now, when you speak to the lamas, and I certainly lived with them long enough, they're very simple, very happy people, as
Yeah.
as the Theravada monks are, or most of the monks, are really happy in their lifestyle choices.
Yeah, I agree with that, because I have experience in India. The Tibetan, not Tibetan, but we call Bhutanese Lama. In my opinion, when I get close, at that time I got close to him and stay with him, I feel like they quite more, approachable and freer, or even simpler than us. They more, it's like friendly, very friendly, and a sense of humor. Sometimes we never see like they have the, angry. They are angry at us, or even frustrated with us. I think that's a very good idea for them. They have the Buddhism as the culture, the spirit of their own country, which different from the Theravada Buddhism, especially in South and Southeast Asia. Even they practice, but it's not a kind of culture. Even it's some tradition, but it's not the culture of Buddhism. It's like a mix between secular or Westernized, culture, or even the, secularized culture. And also Buddhist culture is not like a Tibet or even in the Himalaya area. I mean, influence. I mean, Buddhism there. So I think it's we can learn from each other as you have a good opportunity to share your experience with us, like you stay in the US and then you learn from the Lama various tradition, not just only Nyingma Pa, I mean the school in Tibetan, right? Nyingma Pa, Kakayupa, or even
Yeah.
Sakaya, or even Gelupa, which Dalai Lama belong to. Maybe you study Chan, I mean Buddhism, Chan Buddhism, and then to Zen Buddhism, which the unique in Japan. That's why different from Theravada. Theravada we have, I mean our unique, I mean belief or observance. For example, like we believe in the Tipitaka, right? As our all correction, something like that. But in Mahayana or even Vajrayana, they can interpret it, the we call inherent or exoric teaching. I mean hidden. I mean in the Buddha teaching or literal teaching of the Buddha appear in Tipitaka or in the text, something like that, which I think is beautiful. And then they have the more, I mean, scholar, to interpret their own teaching. For example, in the past they have like a Nakarashuna, right? Nakarashuna, or even the two brothers, Asanga or Vasabandhu. In later generation, they have right now Dalai Lama, 14 Dalai Lama, which interpret the Buddha teaching. And sometimes we don't know is through the Tipitaka or not, or just only many, I mean, contexts, to that. I think is beautiful. But in Theravada, we quite have the, I mean, strict to the Vinaya, right? To Vinaya, yep, and to the Tipitaka, to the text. When we have something, the case arising in our Sangha or in Buddhist, sometimes we cannot find some solution. We just only stick to the, I mean, to the Tipitaka, which is the even, happen in the Buddha time, different context, different, I mean, circumstance. So that's why, yes, we can learn from each other. That's why right now we call like religious, or maybe we can call Buddhist pluralism, pluralism, to learn from each other. Jim, 3 more minutes. I would like you to conclude for this tape.
My appreciation of the differences between the traditions, I think, has to do with investing in emotional, the emotional component of your meditational experiences. And the Mahayanas, as a reformation in really the 2nd century to the 6th or 7th century, decided that emotions were in fact part of meditational experience. The Theravadins actually haven't decided to do that. And I think that that is one of the components that distinguishes the different traditions. My feeling is sunyata, when you do a sunyata meditation, the meditation is not that difficult. It's coming back from the meditation that's difficult.
Yeah.
And it's extremely emotional. And life from different life on the planet, as contrasted to the sunyata practice, what it does is includes the emotional experience. And to disregard that is, I think, missing the point to some extent. And I think if you look at the basic conditions, I think we will discover that it's the emotional component that is the primary difference in the different traditions.
Yep, thank you very much. So I would like to conclude in Thai for a while สำหรับญาติโยมที่กำลังรับชมรายการอยู่อาตมาก็จะขออนุญาตในการสรุปนะสัก2-3 นาที หลังจากที่ได้สนทนากับสามเณรนะจิมหรือว่าเจมมาเชลซึ่งแต่ก่อนก็เป็นอุบาสกนะท่านโยมคุณโยมอาจจะเคยชินกับชุดขาวที่เคยมาออกแต่ตอนนี้ได้ไปบวชแล้วจำพรรษาอยู่ที่สระบุรีก็คือที่อำเภอพุทธบาทนะก็ได้แลกเปลี่ยนสนทนาซึ่งในช่วงนี้ก็ได้สนทนาในเรื่องอดีตของท่านว่าท่านมีประสบการณ์ยังไงกับการบวชบ้างท่านก็บอกว่าท่านก็เคยเป็นบวชหรือว่าเป็นสามเณรแต่ว่าประเพณีของการบวชแต่ละที่ก็แตกต่างกันโดยเฉพาะในพุทธศาสนามหายานซึ่งเป็นฌานหรือว่าเราอาจจะคุ้นกับเซนของญี่ปุ่นแต่ถ้าเราเรียกว่าฌานก็คือของจีนซึ่งท่านเคยบวชอยู่ที่ชิคาโกอิลลินอยส์ก็สามารถที่จะเรียนรู้ประเพณีของลัทธิหรือว่านิกายที่แตกต่างกันโดยเฉพาะนิกายพุทธศาสนามหายานที่นั่นนะก็ได้มีประสบการณ์แล้วก็ศึกษาจากทิเบตบ้างแต่โดยส่วนมากก็จะเป็นอุบาสกแต่ว่าจะเป็นเนนก็มีความแตกต่างกับพุทธศาสนาในบ้านเราโดยเฉพาะการเป็นสามเณรซึ่งจะต้องสวมจีวรนะจะต้องแต่ทั้งนี้ทั้งนั้นการได้มาอยู่ในประเทศไทยก็ได้เป็นประสบการณ์ที่ดีเพราะเมืองไทยเป็นเมืองพุทธและที่สำคัญนั้นเขาก็ได้บอกว่าทางญาติโยมก็ได้ให้ความเคารพเป็นอย่างดีโดยเฉพาะนึกว่าเขาเป็นพระแต่ที่จริงก็เป็นเนนอยู่อาตมาก็พยายามจะบอกเขาว่าก็โยมอาจจะเห็นหน้าตานะฮะได้นับถือก็นึกว่าเป็นพระและที่สำคัญก็มีโอกาสเนี่ยได้เล่าประสบการณ์ในเรื่องของการปฏิบัติที่แตกต่างกันซึ่งก็ทำให้เราเห็นว่าปัจจุบันพุทธศาสนาแต่ละนิกายก็ได้มาเจอได้เรียนรู้จากกันมากยิ่งขึ้นก็ถือว่าเป็นสิ่งที่สวยงามท่านก็ได้สรุปท้ายว่าถึงแม้ว่าจะมีความแตกต่างกันก็ยังมีในเรื่องของสุญญตาแนวคิดในเรื่องของสุญญตาแนวคิดในเรื่องของความว่างแนวคิดในเรื่องของสิ่งที่เป็นเนื้อหาเป็นสาระของหลักธรรมทางพุทธศาสนาอยู่ทุกนิกายอาจจะมีความแตกต่างกันไปแต่ก็เป็นความสวยงามของแต่ละที่นะซึ่งวัฒนธรรมก็ได้แพร่ไปอยู่ในที่ต่างๆนั่นก็เป็นความสวยงามก็อาตมาภาพก็ต้องขอเจริญพรโอเค thank you very much Jim so
thank you
on behalf of Buddhist Sankhayus I would like to thank Venerable Novice Jim for his experience sharing experience with us on Buddhist especially monastic life and thank you very much for the audience if you have any question feel free to ask and share your opinion with us Buddhist Sankhayus of Thailand according to the address as we given it to you so see you next time same place until then